saying howdy to each other.
We will just go right into it. Cassie's like, so are we just going to go into it? I was like, yeah, girl, we'll just go straight into this shit because we've got 45 minutes to like let people know who you are and to tell them about your life and inspire the shit out of them to go decide it's their own turn. You guys, I am here with one of my good girlfriends, Cassie Everson-Martin, who you probably don't know her by her name, but you probably know her as Wanderlust Skulls on Instagram. She is the OG. She is the head honcho. She is the woman who creates buffalo and longhorn skulls that are absolutely drop dead gorgeous. I am not a country person. Everyone knows, like, I went camping one time this summer and I'm probably not going to do it again. But Cassie is the girl who is literally in the farm truck fucking with, cow heads and longhorn skulls. And I just love you so much. So thanks for doing this.
Oh, thanks. I love you too. I'm so flipping pumped to do this today.
Yeah, because people have to know you. Like, literally, you guys, you don't even have to love longhorn skulls. You don't even have to love buffalo skulls. Like, I don't have one of those in my home. However, I have definitely shared them with so many people who would like totally jam on that. But you have to follow Cassie right now. Just go over it at Wanderlust Skulls on IG. Are you everywhere else too? I just only follow you on IG.
I do IG and Facebook because for me, I'm like, I just want to choose a couple platforms to focus on. You know what I mean? Just don't want to be like all over the place as of right now. So those are my two places to find me. And it's just straight up like Wanderlust Skulls. That's all.
Yeah, that's all. And it's fucking so funny and you're so good and your content is beautiful. You're an artist through and through. But go back to exactly what Cassie just said, because today we're going to talk a lot about how to, like, most people say that they're going to do something and they never actually do it because they think about all of the reasons why. And one thing Cassie just said is, I'm just on two places and I'm just going to do those two places really well. And newsflash, she has an extremely successful business and she has been able to show up on those two very consistently and create an amazing audience on there. So that is your first tip right now. You don't have to be everywhere in order to have an extremely successful business. But before we dive into all of the things, Cass, tell everyone who you are. Like, give them the 411.
I'm Cassie. My husband and I live in Wisconsin. And the fun part about that is when I travel and I go places for what I do, people are like, oh, you're from Texas? I'm like, no, I'm from Wisconsin. And then they give me a strange look, right? So we have 2 kids. We totally run the farm life. We've got horses. We help with my father-in-law's herd of beef cattle. We're making hay all summer. So if you follow me on IG, you can follow our adventures in making hay. And I'm an artist. And that's what I'm known for mostly, is being an artist. And obviously the medium is a little different because it's longhorn skulls and buffalo skulls. And I take what's been like a classic staple in the Western art industry and I put a little spin on it. I like to say that I do more like modern abstract style Western pieces. But the fun part about what I do is I've taken something that's been classically Western and now I've got people from whole different walks of life that like literally have them in their homes. I have a guy from the Bronx, New York, that bought a steer skull for his bougie apartment. Like, I've got people that would never have wanted something like this in their home that have it in their home. They're not ranchers. They're not farmers. They're just everyday humans like you and I. And it's just crazy to see where this is like evolved to. Because I'm coming up on 7 years next week, actually, that I started doing this.
Wow. Because, yeah, you and I met like, 5 years ago? And it was like kind of the
2019, beginning. Right?
Yeah.
I think it was
18, 19. Yeah. Yep. Crazy. Yep. So long. It feels like so long ago. But for those of you who don't perhaps like understand this right now, I know there's some of you that probably do, because Cassie, I don't know if you know this, but do you know who Clinton Anderson is in the horse world?
Yes, I do. I know who he is. I've never met him or anything, but yes.
I need you to go on his podcast. But anyway, he and I did a podcast together and it really took off. So I have a big audience now that listens that is in the horse world. So all of you horse people who followed me because of Clinton, like that podcast, we did like 25,000 downloads the first week or something silly, right? So there's so many people. Girl. Yeah, there were so many people that are now listening to this podcast because of Clinton. So some of you may know what we're talking about, but for those of you who don't, like when I first met Cassie, I was like, So, you know, when people go hunting and they like put those like skulls up on the wall, like they put the cow skull up on the wall, like you literally see in the old timey movies. That's what Cassie does. But the way that I describe it, Cassie, is like you're like the Vegas style of that. Like I immediately associate you with like high end Vegas hotel, bougie as fuck, like blinged out, sparkled, beautiful artwork in like the old school cowboy way. Like that's the way I've always seen your stuff. It's absolutely gorgeous.
Thank you. Thank you. And that's one thing that I've always like kept in my mind, like from a creation standpoint. Like I love and respect like the things that I've done before, but like how can I take this and make it different? You know what I mean? And how can I take it and make it something that somebody wants to be able to maybe like move it from room to room? Maybe they want it in their office for a while, and then maybe they want to stick it in their living room, but also like maybe their grandkid wants it someday. You know what I mean? Like heirloom style pieces that are cool and timeless, but also have that like modern twist on them. You know, that's just like how I've always thought about it when I'm creating stuff.
Okay, so take us back to like how this started, because I know so many people are going to be like, how did this go from an idea to now your art has been featured in 7 different countries, magazines, in the Bronx, you know, bougie-esque apartment in New York? Like, how did this happen? Like, how did it start? Tell us.
Yeah. So it seems like a simple story, but now when I tell it, people are like, that's really cool. Because I think sometimes we lower like the quality of the story, because when it's just like us telling it, we're like, it's not that big of a deal. But I married a cowboy, a Wisconsin cowboy. So at one point I'm like, oh, cowboys need skulls in their house. Like they need a steer skull or longhorn skull or whatever. And I literally walked into the consignment shop in our little town that we live near, and they had a rack of steer skulls in the basement. And I'm like, I'm going to buy one. I think I paid $20 for it. That's it, $20. And I brought it home and I'm like, I'm going to paint it. I'm going to make it cool. I just think that'd be fun. So I looked on Pinterest, I looked on Google, and I'm like, what have people done? You know, what do I like? Stuff like that. And I was like, I actually don't really like any of this stuff. So I'm just going to see where it takes me and do something. And the best part about this is the other day I was looking through like some memory stuff, and I found a picture of, I had a piece of cardboard laid out on the concrete outside. And I think Lane, well, she was like 18 months old at this point. And I gave her an egg carton and a tray of paint. And she was over here. And I have a picture of her little butt sticking in the air while she's like painting this egg carton. And I have this skull on a piece of cardboard, and I had painted it outside. And I put it in our house after I embellished it and did some stuff to it. And a lot of people are like, that is so cool. Like, I'd love one of those. And for 2 years, 2 flipping years, I tell you, I thought about it every day. I thought about it at night when I went to sleep. Sometimes I'd dream about it. I would just keep like looking at skulls. And once again, we live in Wisconsin, so everybody dehorns their animals here. And I was like, I don't even know where I'm going to get like skulls with horns on them, because they have to have horns on them. So fast forward 2 years, so 7 years ago, I quit my retail job because it was just like a toxic place to work, and I was sick of it. And I was like, I can handle this like stay-at-home mom stuff. It's going to be great. Nothing against being a stay-at-home mom, because technically I still kind of am too, because I work out of our house. I just felt like I needed something else. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to try and find some skulls. So I went on Facebook and I literally typed in a status and said, does anybody have skulls for sale? Like steer skulls. Because I didn't know what to say. I immediately had a reply from somebody. I went and bought 3 skulls. They were super cheap because that guy didn't even know what to sell them for. I brought them home and I spent the next couple of days literally just painting them. That's all I did.
So I'm gonna just want to cut you off right now, because I just know that someone is probably thinking this exact same question. Like, are they bloodied? Like, do you have to like clean them? Like,
my first ones were
what is
clean.
the actual like step in that? Like, yeah, cut off my head. Here, you can.
Yeah. So the first ones were clean, which I think looking back is a good thing. Because if I would have had to clean my first ones, I probably would have been like, fuck this shit, I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
So I just painted them and I put them on Facebook and I sold them. I like maybe made a couple bucks, maybe $10. I don't know, because I didn't know what the heck I was doing. I was just like, oh, this price sounds good. Yeah, we'll just do that. And I'll throw it out there. And then I'm like, cool, let's find some more for fun, right? For fun. So I found this guy that lived like a half an hour from me. He used to have a herd of longhorns, and he had a stash in his haymow that he'd just been keeping for years. And I was like, hey, this guy told me about you. He said you have skulls. He's like, sure, they're my retirement plan. I'll sell them to you. I had no clue what they were worth. So I'd go to his house and I just kept buying like handfuls at a time. I'd buy them, I'd run out, I'd paint them. At this point, I still didn't technically have like a business page for anything. I was just throwing this stuff up on Facebook and just like doing it. And then it got to the point where he's like, well, kid, I have none left, which I knew. And he's like, I don't know what to tell you. I've been out of the longhorn business for so long. I don't even know who to ask. Like, and so then I just decided to go on Craigslist, and I just got savvy and I started looking up like longhorns, longhorn skulls, longhorn breeders. And then I found a guy with buffalo skulls. So then I went and bought a handful of buffalo skulls from him. And I just kept going. Like, I just kept going. And I made an Instagram and I started growing my Instagram. And then I had my Facebook page, obviously, as well. And I just really focused on those two things. And it was early 2019 when I finally got a website. And I just had been avoiding it. I was like, oh, I don't know how to build a website. So I'm just like, not going to do it. But then I found somebody that did it for me, and they did it very affordably, and they helped me, and I got it up. And then all of a sudden, so I think you and I met like a month after that website had been launched through our mastermind. I went in March that year. I hadn't sold anything all year. Nothing. And I'd signed up for this mastermind that I literally couldn't afford at the time. Like, I could not afford to
You guys, I want you
it.
guys to hear that too. She stepped out on a limb and she did something because she knew she had to do it, and she knew she had to put her ass on the line. She knew she had to be scared because she knew that was the next step. I mean, I just love when everyone else says it, because I feel like, 150 episodes in, they hear me say it all the time and they're like, yeah, this bitch, she does, like, does she really know? But like, it's 100% the truth. You have to do the scary thing all the time. And now I'm sure that was like one of the first 100 scary things that you've had to do since, but
right. So then the next thing I do is drive all the way to Texas to do this. It's called Texas Antiques Week. It's like the Mecca, the dream field of antiques, artistry. It's just like the coolest place. And I drive down there and I'm so excited because I'm going and I'm going to go sell my skulls. I didn't sell a single thing all week long. I drove 22 hours by myself with a truck bed full of longhorn skulls and buffalo skulls. I didn't sell anything. And then I drive home and I still haven't sold anything. And at this point, I think I had 47 skulls in our tiny ass little farmhouse. Like, I was literally always yelling at my kids. I'm like, stop running. You're going to fall and impale yourself. Because I had them everywhere. I finally sold something 5 months into that year. It took 5 freaking months to finally sell something. Not to mention, in December of 2018, I had gone to Vegas at NFR and had only sold 2 skulls at NFR. That's it. And that's why I had 47 skulls in my house, is because I had prepped for that and not sold anything. I was thousands and thousands of dollars in debt at this point in my life, and I didn't know what to do about it other than to just keep going forward. I feel like a lot of people probably would have quit at that point. They're like, 100%. I haven't sold this many months. Like, this isn't working. This isn't gonna work. But I just kept going. 2019 got better, and it became like my first big year, I could say. And then 2020 came. Crushed with all the, the COVID crap.
Yeah.
I didn't know how I was going to homeschool my kids. I was so busy. It was insane. And I literally had my first 6-figure year. I hadn't had a 6-figure year yet. And from then, it's just not slowed down. It's just crazy how things work out. Like, super freaking crazy how things work out.
Do you remember? So I always try to tell the time, and you knew me at the time where I had that when I did that live event where I was literally drowning, I lost 50 grand doing that event. And to me, that was like the greatest thing ever. It was like the biggest blessing ever. And I want you guys, anyone who's listening to this, if you were in that drowning stage where Cassie hadn't sold shit, where I had lost like $50,000, where I was like, or, you know, I had invested $50,000 in this event and did not come close to breaking even. If you guys are ever in that stage, please listen to this, because every successful person has been in that stage where you are literally at your kind of rock bottom moment where it's either sink or swim. And I've worked with a lot of people over the years, and I will tell you, as sad as it makes me, 75 to 80% of people sink. They just go get another job. They just go back to doing what they were doing. They just pack it in. And Cassie and I did not pack it in. And that's the only reason for me to still be here today, is that I just kept going.
Yeah. And sometimes people don't want to see the light at the end of the tunnel because they want to put all the excuses in front of their face.
Correct.
The reason to stop instead of seeing like the reason to keep going. Like I knew in my heart, I was like, God has placed us here for a reason. There's a reason that it literally burned me for 2 years. Okay, why did it burn me for 2 years if it wasn't something that I was supposed to be doing? And I just felt like when I finally started that momentum, that's when things changed. And it was still showing up. It was showing up and being like, hi, with less confidence than I have now. Look at my art I made. You want to buy it? Every freaking day, even though nobody was buying anything. Sure, people were like messaging me and talking to me, but nobody was buying anything. People were watching my stories. I think that's when stories came out. It was like 2018, 2019. Yes, it totally was around that time.
Yeah, it was 2018, 2019.
Yeah, we talked about that like in our mastermind too. But like, I felt like I was talking to nobody, but I just kept talking. You know, I just kept sharing and showing and I kept going. That's all.
Do you think one of the things, like lately I've been kind of obsessed with this fact that there's so many people, like, and I even see it like with people who've worked with me over the years too. Like, I feel like there's so many people that just keep consuming and keep thinking like there's one more thing that they have to learn, or there's one more thing that they have to do, or there's one more course or one more strategy or one more thing, instead of actually just fucking doing it. Like, if you are not actually putting, like Cassie just said, she was just like, do you want to buy this? Do you want to buy this? Do you want to buy this? She got 1,000 no's before you started getting 1,000 yeses.
Yes. But even then too, like I wasn't even at a good price point. Like I didn't understand like the math side of it, like the business back end part of it.
Yeah.
I wasn't even selling things for that much money. And people were telling me it was too expensive. And I was just like, okay, another.
Do you feel like when you put your prices up, do you feel like when you put your prices up, things actually started selling more?
Yes, 100%. I remember when I raised my prices on my Longhorns. And it should have been there before that. And this was 2019 too, Christina, because like joining that mastermind really did change my mindset.
100%.
I remember waking up at 6:30 in the morning and I looked at my phone and it said I had a sale. But it showed me like a $500 sale. And I was like, oh, cool. I sold a buffalo skull in the middle of the night. That's neat. And then I went and looked at like the back end because I have Shopify as a platform. If anybody wants to sell art or product or whatever, I love Shopify. Totally recommend it. That's an unpaid plug. But I look and I'm like, what? It said for the day I had 6.3K sales. I'm like, I don't understand. I'm like, no, I just sold like a buffalo skull. So I went and looked at the orders because it'll give you like an order sequence, right? Like the last people that bought from you, what have you. I seen the name of the woman who bought. I'm like, oh, cool. She came back for a buffalo skull because she had bought a longhorn skull. I think it was like 3 weeks before that because I wasn't like consistently selling stuff. And I'm like, cool. She must have liked it so much that she came back for this buffalo skull. But there was 2 orders there. She had done 1 order for a buffalo skull and she bought 5 longhorns in 1 order.
Wow.
And I figured that out and I was like, what? Holy crap. And that was exciting. And I feel like that also gave me the confidence because I had raised my prices. Somebody came and found me. They saw the work. they had purchased one, they had appreciated it, and they came back for more. And that woman has 13 skulls for me now. Like she's become a collector. Like she's become a collector. And I would say her home style is like Jesus, Nashville, and John Wayne had a baby.
Oh my
That's
God.
what I say. Like it's so cool. It's so cool. Like I've seen pictures of her house. She sent them to me and I love it.
Oh my God, that's so freaking cool. I love that. I actually do think that so many people, so many people, especially in the beginning, like you did the same thing. I did the same thing. I mean, I think in the beginning I was charging like $200 an hour or something so stupid, like just for the value, and you're the same thing, I'm sure, with you and your skulls. It was like, maybe I could sell it for this month. But the minute you up the prices, like, and I want you guys to hear this, like, people associate a higher price, like whether you like it or not, people associate a higher price with like a better thing. And sometimes that's not the case. Like there could be a person charging you $1,000 an hour that's absolute dog shit. There totally could be. But and if you guys don't believe me, think about before Instagram had the blue check mark. Immediately, if you saw someone who had a blue check mark before you could pay for it, if you saw someone who had a blue check mark, you immediately associated them with being of some importance. Or people who had hundreds of thousands of followers. Why do you think even the big dogs were paying for their followers? Because in your brain, you immediately, and every single one of you listening to this, are associating with someone being more important because they have more followers. That's definitely not the case. But in your world, especially if someone's selling that skull for $50 and someone's selling that skull for $5,000, in your brain, you immediately think the person selling that skull for $5,000 is better.
Yeah. And like you said, sometimes it's not always the case.
Sometimes it's not.
But more than often, it is the case. And people see that. And, that's just how we are as humans. That's how we're wired. You think of the value point and you automatically assume in your head, I'm getting something of higher value. Like I think of those Kia like Tellurides. You know what I'm talking about?
Yep.
You put one of those next to a Land Rover, it's still not a Land Rover. People are still going to want the Land Rover over the Telluride because of the assumed value that the Land Rover has. They look good. They probably are just as good, but people want to buy the brand. They want to buy the name. And that's where like value comes in big time.
Do you think in your industry, and this is definitely pointed to like the creative, I automatically think of like you and Joey and everyone who has that extremely creative brain. Like obviously like you're extremely creative. I feel like, and you even wrote it like when we were talking, you said creatives have a tendency to be in that broke mindset. How did you change that? Because I think whether you're a creative or not, guys, there's a lot of people who are living in that broke mindset. How did you start changing that?
I think it was more like the helpful part for me is like rewriting my story. Because everybody told me how artistic I was or how creative I was growing up. But then all you ever heard was like, artists don't sell anything. They just make things for fun as a hobby. And they like give them to their friends or they're starving on the street. And then you think, well, then I don't want to own the fact that I'm good at making things pretty. I'm good at making things beautiful, or that you have these talents. So with that in mind, once you start doing, the more you do, and the more you keep pushing yourself, the easier it is to break that mindset. Like that's the thing I want people to like realize. Yeah, you can do it 3 times, but that's not going to help. If you do 100 times, it's going to get easier and easier. And I know it's like when people say like, oh, I can't take a video of myself. I don't like doing that. Well, then you need to do it like 200 times and you're going to be more comfortable at making a video. You're going to be more comfortable at talking on screen. You're not going to care if you have a double chin once in a while. People are going to laugh at you. It's fine. And show up messy. That's the other thing. Like, if you're going to break that mindset, you don't have to be perfect all the time. Because the people that act perfect, they're found out eventually. And nobody likes that.
Amen. 100%.
Nobody likes that.
100%. Cassie like literally shows up. Like you look cute as a button right now or whatever. But every once in a while you will show up and you are like, I do the exact same thing. So I'm not saying whatever. Like, I am willing to show up like the hottest mess ever. And you sometimes do it. But your videos are so fucking good. You guys, I am not kidding. Go follow Cassie. You'll want to buy her stuff just because it's so pretty. But even if you don't, she's fucking the best motivational person to follow. Your videos are comedy hour. You're so good.
Thanks. I mean, and that was one thing like I didn't want to own for a while. Like, I guess I'm kind of funny.
Oh my God, you're hilarious.
Why not let people see that part, you know? Because I used to think like, well, artists are serious, you know, they're serious and they're deep and they have all these things to say. Well, sure they do. But you know what? Some of us are really funny too. So why not show people that part?
Do you feel like that's helped you build your brand? Is that you're just so authentically you?
I think so, because I can tell you this, when I started, like, I didn't know if there were other skull artists out there. Let's just like take that specifically. Obviously there's tons of artists out there, but I found a few girls that were doing skull art on Instagram, all of them very different than me. But when I started, nobody was showing the nasty, dirty work. Like when stories came out, like we said, I started showing people how disgusting it is because I have to clean all my stuff. I had to clean all my skulls, self-taught taxidermist. When I started doing that, people were like, whoa, they were either really scared or they loved it. But it's just being like authentic and showing the whole freaking process, no matter what. And once I started doing that, it took some time, but then everybody else started doing it. And it just started a chain reaction. And now that's the one thing, like when you start doing something, you have to be ready to be imitated, you know, because people are like, well, if it's working for them, it's going to work for me. And yeah, it might, but it shows people that the dirty is part of the journey, and like literally and figuratively when you're talking about my work.
You guys, one of my favorite videos of Cassie is where she is literally teaching you how to like siphon. Well, were you siphoning water or gas? Which one was it? I was like,
it was
God.
water.
Yeah, she's like, here, watch this. I'll show you how to siphon gas or siphon water. I was dying. I watched it like 4 times. It was comedy.
So my husband had stolen my trash pump. If you guys don't know what a trash pump is, just Google it. It's for getting water out of tanks or creeks or whatever. Anyways, he'd taken my trash pump and I was like, shoot, I got to do this the old fashioned way now. So I was like, well, maybe I should record this. So I recorded myself siphoning water out of my bathtub tanks. That's what I affectionately call these ones, are the bathtub tanks. It wasn't the nasty ones, but it was the semi-clean ones. And I just showed people how to siphon water.
Oh my God,
with a really big hose.
It was so good. I loved it so much. It was so good. Along the journey though, I know that there has been, for you in particular, just because of the work that you do, I know that there's people that do not love what you do, like, you know, from the whole like animal side of things. How I only talk about this because I think a lot of people feel like it's so easy for a lot of people. Like they're looking at you now 7 years down the road and the success that you've had, but I'm sure you're still getting it today. Like I am still getting my ass kicked. Like I am 6 years down the road and I am still getting my ass kicked. I am still pissing people off. I am still having hard days. I am still getting, you know, whether it's clients, whether it's team, whether it's just the daily of life, I still have bad days. And I think so many people think that they're going to get to the spot where they don't, but like, how have you dealt with the things that you've been dealing with along the journey? Because I'm sure you still get them today. Like those people are never going away.
Yeah. Well, and one thing I've learned too is to pause. Don't react right away. If you have to take a little while to cool yourself down and think about how to respond to people, if a response is warranted, take a pause. But I have to remember, they're only seeing what's on the screen. And I think even we forget sometimes, you know, as much as people think, oh, they're showing the whole story, they're showing exactly what they're doing all day, every day, there's so many other parts to the day. That's why sometimes when those people come at you, they don't even have grounds to come at you or be upset with you because they don't actually see everything that's going on. They only see surface value. They don't see everything. They don't see the boulder under the water. You know, you think of that iceberg picture where it shows like people only see the tip. They don't see what's underneath. You just have to realize that it's never going to stop. And it's not going to actually get easier the more into it you get. Sometimes it gets a little bit worse, the type of people that are coming at you. Or maybe you'll get that client that maybe you never should have taken on in the first place.
Oh my God, please talk about that, because it happens to every single one of us.
It happens. And sometimes too, you think it's a good fit. But then you get into the project and you're like, oh, so you want to micromanage me? Okay, this is going to work out great. You just have to realize that if you have 90% good days and only 10% bad days, everything is going to be just fine. And you have to look at it that way. It's a game of odds. And honestly, just keep going. Like they just want like all these lovely words that are compiled together. It's as simple as just keep going. And the longer you do it, the stronger you become in your mind. I mean, I have my bad days still, but if that's the case, if it's that bad, take a break for a little bit, walk away from it, and start again tomorrow.
Yep, 100%. And one of the things that Cassie said that you guys, I fully believe to my core, because I feel the exact same way, that is in her. Like, this is a God, like when I tell you I help you live your God-given purpose, like I truly believe from the bottom of my soul, every single one of us has something that they're as passionate as Cassie is, as passionate as I am. But so many people push it down because they just don't think it's possible. It's not for them. Who are they? All the things. But like, even if Cassie has all of these bad days, even if, monetarily something doesn't work out or someone comes at her, or she has someone micromanaging her, this is so in her, it's never going away. It's never going away. And there is days that it is so hard. I mean, I have had hard days. You have had hard days. We have all had hard days along the way. And just like she said, I mean, you're only seeing 10% of everything. You're seeing her show up siphoning dirty ass icky water on Instagram and selling these, $3,000 pieces of art, but you're only seeing like a tiny percentage of it. The work that she has had to do to become who she is, to create the brand, to create the business. And I think that that's something that, we overlook as well. Like, you have had to learn everything from literally picking up a paintbrush, painting a skull, to now being like, oh, Shopify is the best business. And I've got this client here and this shipping there. Like, I am sure along the way, there has been some fucking horrifically hard lessons along the way.
Yes. Very much so. Well, even like just cleaning skulls,
Yeah. How did you learn how to do that?
YouTube? I did a lot of YouTube. I did a lot of thinking. I just was like, I'll try this, and then I'll try this, and then I'll try this. And then I kind of made the mistake of asking too many like taxidermists or, different guys that had done it before. Like, oh, what do you think I should do? Trial and error is how it really worked for me. And I have one other woman that I trust her opinion on cleaning skulls over anybody. And once in a while, I would be like, hey. And here's the other thing. I want to be like, hi, how do I do this, this, and this? You know what I mean? Like, we actually have formed a friendship and we respect one another. I'll be like, hey, girl, this is what I'm having problems with. If you have time, if you have the bandwidth, would you give me some advice on this? Because I tell you what.
Oh my God. Every Tom, Dick, and Harry is in your DMs going, hey, can I pick your brain? Hey, can I go for coffee? Hey.
Or not just that. Or they won't even say hi. I got this one skull I want to clean. Like, how should I do it?
You know what? That's your next course, Cass. You could create a video course on that.
Maybe.
You could just record it all.
To that. I could. I really could. I just don't feel called to that because I'm so interested in like the artistry aspect of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I do hope one day, one of my ultimate goals would be that I don't ever have to clean them and I can solely focus on just creating, going to shows, networking. And because honestly, that is the hardest flipping part about my business Like last year, I did over 200 skulls by myself with no help. That's a lot.
How long does it take to clean a skull?
It takes weeks.
Really?
But I do, yes, but I do batch cleaning, which that's another thing I've learned. I've learned how to batch them with a certain process, and that does make it a lot easier. But like this summer, that's like my life besides the farm work and being a mom and being a wife. I literally am cleaning my life away. Because it takes so much time, because everything I get, like they just met Jesus. Like that's what I tell people. They just met Jesus, or they've been rotting in their grave for a couple weeks and then I come and save them. But it takes a lot of time. So I would say each piece, some more than others, has anywhere between 200 to 300 hours into them.
Oh my God,
and
you guys.
And that's being generous, because that's just like the work. That's not sourcing them. I got to drive to get my stuff. I can't have my stuff shipped unless I'm buying a clean one, like from somebody. But like when they've just met Jesus, you got to go and get them. Like I make a trip to Texas twice a year. I go to Southern Illinois. Like I go all over the place. So that's not even like drive time included.
Oh my gosh.
Right,
You guys.
stuff.
Yeah. So literally think about that the next time you check out Cassie's website and be like, wow, that's pretty, be like, no, bitch, that's like 2 cents an hour. Like,
yeah, I actually gave somebody, who was asking for like artistic advice the other day. She's like, well, how did you figure out like that you charge $3,000 for a piece, or you do this much for a piece, you do this much for a piece? I said, let's just do like basic math. This isn't even like with your inputs, like the cost of the product, the cost of the paint, you know, if you're using a finish on it, if you're buying gold leafing, if you're buying, let's say you use some weird items like wood or whatever it is, all your inputs. I said, here's a $3,000 piece. It took you 200 hours. If you divide that out, that's only $15 an hour. Like put that into perspective. You know what I mean? Like I have a formula that I'm more than willing to share with people about like how to price yourself, but like you need to look at things like that. Let's say it took you 50 hours. Well, now you're making a little bit more an hour, but you have to look at the broad general view of your business, especially when you're like creating art pieces. Like what's the end goal? And from that, like what is your profit margin going to be? Because that's one thing about, I think, being an artist that people don't think about. There is actually a lot of cost of inputs into what you do, because you're not picking stuff up for free. Like a lot of people literally ask me if I get my heads for free. It's kind of funny. I do not, nor is the paint or anything else. But like, what's the total cost of every single piece? And then what's your end goal? And what do you want your profit margin to be? And how do you want to be able to live your life from that?
oh my gosh.
You know what I mean? And like, what's your growth goals?
100%. I talk about this with clients all the time. And, you know, one thing that I find that people, you know, maybe it's not this exact industry, but it could be, you know, I have clients from all different industries. And one thing that I find with people who are entrepreneurs that start these businesses, they start making, you know, they start making money. Like a lot of times people start making money because they're super passionate. They start bringing in, you know, this gross revenue of whatever, but they don't understand profit margins. They don't understand their numbers. They're just like, well, $200 an hour sounds good. I'm like, have we done the math? Like, do you know exactly what it takes? And so, you know, that's a smart business move for anyone. Like, do the math. Everything is about math. How much time, energy, effort, product, when you're selling an actual product, how much is that costing you? Because you may sell it for $3,000 and that might be amazing, but you might have $31 into it, you guys. Like it is.
And that's a losing game.
Yeah, exactly. That math does not add up, folks. That is bad math.
No.
As I tell my husband sometimes, I'm like, that's bad math.
Yeah, exactly. And two, I've noticed one thing, like with artists specifically, because like I can actually talk to that. Somebody's like, well, I want to do $500,000 a year. Cool. So you're going to gross $500,000 a year.
People don't.
That doesn't mean you get to bring home $500,000 a year. So now we got to break that down for you. You know, there's just things you learn along the way. But like with artists, we're so like, yeah, that'll be great. This will be great. but sometimes you don't think about the really hardcore business parts of it until you really have to look at it. And I say, like, get yourself a really good accountant, you know, somebody that's like, they want to teach you, they want to work with you, and they really want to help you, because that will be so good for you if you get that early on as opposed to later on.
Absolutely.
Trust me on
100%.
that.
Oh, 100%. You have to know your numbers. Absolutely. You have to know your numbers. And, you know, when you are making a lot of like, when you're making a lot of gross revenue, I think for me, one thing I tell clients who are definitely doing 7 figures and above in gross is you have to tax plan. Cause I mean, it is the biggest eye opening ever where you're like, I brought in $200,000. And at the end of the year, you're like,
I'm a rock star.
I owe 30 grand in taxes. Fuck me running. Yeah. Like,
and then the government's like, you're a rock star.
Yeah, exactly. So that stuff is important that I just don't think a lot of people think of. And, you know, people think about these ideas and following their passions, but then all of a sudden you're like, oh shit, I'm a creative who's now a business owner. And I think that people have to pay attention to that, because I just don't think we're taught that. Fuck, I think all kids should be ripped out of school for a year or two, taught about human connection, fucking accounting, like business, let's go, life skills that, you know, thankfully we've learned along the way and, you know, help people with and all the things. But yeah, it's a big deal and people just don't think about it. So, and I do know you still invest in yourself. You go to Emily Frizella's event, which I need to go to so I can see you.
Yes. Well, you would love it. I like to try to do at least,
right?
Yep. I'm an RTA too. And then there's this woman who actually bought a piece for me years ago. Okay. And I kept up with her. I followed her, and she's incredible. Okay. And I can relate to her on a lot of levels. She grew up on a farm. I grew up on a farm. She married a farmer. She built a massive boutique. Like, we're talking flipping massive, while being a mom, a wife, and a farmer. And then she decided she wanted more time with her kids, and she wanted to like start giving back to women. So loved her, loved what she was about. I decided to join her coaching group as well. So I'm literally in 2 different coaching groups. Like I said, the one is very women specific. And then she's very specific about the women she wanted in it. You know, what are you juggling? What's your lifestyle? These things like that. I'm in Arate. And then I try to go to one, like, just in-person event if I can during the year, because I think that's one thing too. And this is coming from like a perspective of being a mom. Sometimes you don't have all that extra bandwidth and time. Totally. So if you know that, choose what you can do and stick with that. Because actually, Chalene Johnson said something. She said it many times on her podcast. I don't know if your followers maybe know who Chalene and her husband Brett are, but she said one thing that her and her husband will ever regret, because their children are grown now with their own businesses respectively. Her and Brett said no to so many things. And I'm not saying that this has to be other people's path, but she says that her and Brett do not regret having severe boundaries. And when I say severe, like very restricted boundaries for themselves with business and the things that they went to, because they wanted to make sure that they were there for their kids too. And so when I heard Chalene say that, I'm like, that gives me a lot of permission, because that's how I had kind of felt as a mom too. Because sometimes people can overbook themselves to the point where they're going to so many events that they're not actually working on their business. That's just what I've noticed anyways.
Well,
as a mom.
That's what I said about like even just taking action. Like, people are trying to consume way too much and not enough action.
Yes.
Like,
exactly.
Too much consumption, folks, is causing you, you know, I'm super grateful that you listen to this podcast, but there better be a shit ton of action going with it, because that's how you get to where Cassie is. That's how you get anywhere. I mean, it's not from listening. It's not from watching. It's from doing, folks. It's from doing. Yep. So, I just adore you so much. You guys, please, 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 please go follow Cassie, especially if you dig her art. I just think it's beautiful. And I'm just so grateful to know you. Thank you for taking the time to do this. I know you're a busy mom and you have extreme boundaries. So thank you for making one of them for me. Tell everyone absolutely. Where they can find you, all of the things.
So if you want to look at my art pieces, you can go on Instagram or Facebook. It's at Wanderlust Skulls. And then once again, my website, super easy. It's just www.wanderlustskulls.com.
And we'll
Very
put it
simple.
all in the show notes. Thanks. I appreciate it so much. Wishing you so much love.